Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be this fun Cauldron nail set. So I am starting off with a bunch of different colors in this set. I'm using lots of different colors to get the tones that I want and for everything to be really individual in their sets, and I just wanted like the colors to be very specific, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm using a lot of different colors here, and I am really excited to start this nail set. So I'm just going through all these colors over here, and then we're going to start the nail set, and I am really excited. I really like how this one came out. I did also do this whole video with the flash of my camera on. You might notice that it's a little bit brighter than usual because it was a bit of a cloudy day and I wanted to make sure that the colors were showing up. So some of the glittery gel polishes that we're using will be very emphasized in this look because the flash is on. So I'm starting off with using this deep purpley plum shade from Magpie Beauty. It's got some glitter in it as well, and I'm going to do this on 3 of the nails, and then on the next 2 nails I'm going to use a very similar toned deep purple from Nail Order. It doesn't look the same when I'm just swatching them out like this, but when I do the second coat of the Magpie Beauty gel polish, then the color kind of emphasizes its like deep and richness a little bit more. So I do a second coat, and as you can see there, it's much closer in tone, and then I matte top coated all of those so we can do some hand painting. So the center nail, I wanted to do a cauldron and having a bunch of bubbly stuff coming out of it. So I started off by outlining the design over here, the shape that I want, and I tried to get it very, very rounded. A tip that I have if you're drawing something on a nail is to start off with the design smaller than how you intend the final image to be. As you can see, I started off with an initial layer, and then as I work, I make it rounder and fix up the edges. That's something that's just easiest for me. I find if I try to make the design the right size that I have in mind from the initial get-go, then it's much harder to fix the designs or alter them or correct the shape of them without it getting too large or out of control. And then if I want to do something like adjust the shape or adjust, for example, over here in the cauldron, the roundness, then either I have to take some product away to make room for the new product fixing up the shape, or I have to make the image larger than I want it to be. So I still have to do a bit of cleanup over here. It was very hard to get a rounded shape that I wanted, so I'm just using this little micro swab over here to get the rounded shape that I want. But I find easiest to start smaller than I want and then work larger. It's a lot easier to add product than it is to take away without risking ruining the design or just having a much harder time to fix it afterwards. So then I wanted to add legs to the cauldron, and I started doing these like wider legs. I kind of wanted them to look a little bit curled, like they're on like claw feet. But I didn't end up liking how it looked. It was making the design just look a little bit too off-centered, off-kiltered. I'm not really sure. It wasn't looking right, so I decided to just go with smaller legs. It was disproportionate, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I just did a smaller line over here, smaller feet, so that it didn't look so lopsided. And I do end up doing an outline for the cauldron, but that's going to come later because I wanted to have all of this green bubbly witch's brew pouring over the side of the cauldron, and I figured it would be easier to do the outline around it than it would be to cover up the outline. It's just the way I prefer to work for this set specifically, but you can definitely do the outline first and then add your bubbly witch's brew over top of it. Just depends on how you like working. But for me, this was easier. It was easier to do the outline and it made the outline look a little bit more under the surface as opposed to well, I guess it kind of really depends on the look that you're going for. There's really no wrong way to do it. That's just how I did it this time. And I wanted to have some dribbling down the side of the cauldron and some pooled on the floor so that it looks like this big, maybe poisonous, maybe not, depends. The green definitely gives it a bit of like a poison look. I like the idea of some poisonous witch's brew. And then I'm going to do the outline. So I wanted it to look very frothy, which the different tones of the green. So there's that bright neon green, then there's one that was a little bit sheer, and the glitter gel polish also just adds to a very frothy textured look in my opinion. And then after doing that, I'm going to do the outline, which was pretty easy. Just using black gel polish and a thin brush and just going to outline it, and that just kind of adds depth to the look. It makes it more 3D, it gives it a little bit more dimension and texture. So just going to do that over here, and once you have the shape down, outlines are pretty easy. It's kind of like the opposite of coloring in a coloring book. Once the outline is there, it's easy to fill in the colors, and the same goes for the opposite direction. It's easier to do an outline once you have the shape there. So just going to fill that in and go around the feet over here of the cauldron so that it looks like it's got a lot of dimension going on. And then after that, I don't remember if I do the smoke coming off or the steam. I don't remember the exact order on how I did this this set. I was going back and forth. Yes, so the next thing I do is I add some little bubbles that look like they are floating up from the cauldron, and then I'm going to add some smoke swirls with this lighter gray color over here that I mixed in with some base coat because I didn't want the color to be too strong. I kind of wanted it to feel very thin and wispy like smoke is. I didn't want the color to be too intense, so mixed it in with a little bit of base coat and just added these light little swirls and twirls of smoke, making it look like it's steaming and releasing some fun steam into the air. It was a lot of fun to do this. Actually, I had a really hard time doing the smoke. For some reason, I kept playing around with it. It never really looked completely right. And later, as you can see, I removed some that didn't look great. For some reason, like the idea of doing like a little squiggle just seemed like it should be so easy, and it took a really long time. I cut out most of my erasings because it felt like that wasn't necessary to show, but it's actually more complicated than, for some reason, it just wasn't looking good. And later I figured out why. So when I get to the next part of the set where I use the smoke, I'll explain why it didn't look as good in my brain. So now over here on this nail, I'm using this beigey color, and I want to create a bit of, well, what's gonna be like a parchment of paper. And I kind of want this to be like a spell page, like a sheet of paper with a spell on it from a spell book. So I am starting with this beigey paper color, and then I had the edges a little bit jagged, a little bit warped. Maybe it's a really old book, it's kind of been touched a lot and the pages are starting to curl. I didn't want it to be too perfect. I wasn't concerned either about having the shape of the page be too perfect. Paper over time, of course, warps, and the pages and the shapes change as it's handled and exposed to moisture and air and all different things. So it definitely does not have to be perfect. In fact, I think the imperfectness definitely adds to the effect. And then I'm using this dark brown color, and I'm using some alcohol on my brush and just going to smooth out the harsh lines over here and kind of make it look like the pages have aged, got some maybe stains over the course of the years. And I ended up, at first I was just going to do it on the edges, but I ended up kind of doing a little bit all over the page so that it was nice and textured and aged looking. And then I go in with this really, really tiny detailed brush, and I'm going to create some different witchy symbols on the parchment over here. I will be 100% honest. I know there's like a lot of people out there who are very much into witchy occult symbols and themes and stuff like that. I am very much not a part of that kind of group. I don't really know a lot about it. I literally just Googled witch, what was the word I used? Like witch symbols, something like that, and I copied it off of Google. So runes, that's the word I was looking for, witchy runes, and I found some images on Google, and I just copied them onto the nail over here. So if I get anything wrong, if I misrepresent something, I apologize. I know that these things are really important to some people who really take heart in these kinds of occult, witchy type of things, and I just don't know a lot about it. Like I said, I just Googled some images and copied it onto my sheet, so I apologize if I get anything wrong. Doing the best I can over here. But just copying some of these different runes down, creating different symbols, and then I wanted to add some stars and a little bit of dots onto the nails that I'm going to get to in a second, just to make the page look a little bit worn, a little bit aged, maybe something spilled on it at one time. I just kind of want it to feel a little, definitely like used. It's a spell book that has been used and loved by many generations of witches. That was basically the goal. So just adding some different stars and different details over here, nothing too specific, just kind of just a little bit of fun to add to the dimension and the texture and the realism, I say in quotes, to the nail. So next, moving on to this nail over here, I wanted to create a hand, like a witch's hand that looks like it's pouring some I guess ingredients, some herbs, some potions into the cauldron. So what I did was I actually placed my own hand in front of me before starting to paint this in the kind of like, not gesture, in the kind of like position that I wanted the hand to be in. And then I kind of copied that as best as I can in the gel paint. So you can see here, I am kind of outlining the nails first, and then I am going to fill this in so that I have all the nails the right color. So it ends up losing its shape a little bit until I go in with an outline to redefine the individual fingers. But it's a lot easier to kind of shape out what you want to do first, and then fill it in, and then do your outline afterwards to give the detail and put the detail back in, because at that point you can visualize it in your head as opposed to trying to start off blind, I guess, and not having the exact image in mind. Like, for example, now that I have the hand all filled in, it doesn't look as great, but because I kind of know in my brain what it looked like when I outlined it before filling it in, I can go back in now with this dark brown color and going to do the outline so that I can define her fingers a little bit. Maybe not the best work, but I've never done something like this, never tried to draw human features before. I've never tried to do a human face. I never tried to paint a hand before. So this was my first go. I actually did it in one go. I didn't have to redo it. Sometimes when I do things for the first time, I do mess up. And sometimes I leave it in the videos if I think that there's something to be learned from it, or at least something that I can explain that can be helpful for anyone watching or any beginner. And sometimes it's just a lot of frustration that is not useful in any way, so I cut it out in editing. But this one I actually did in one go. I kind of visualized it in my brain, and I am really pleased with the result. I'm really happy with how that came out, because it was my first go at it ever, and I did it pretty well. So I'm just going to take a little bit of credit for myself over there. I'm really happy with my work, and I think it's really important to be able to be proud of yourself when you get something right, or when you work towards something and it pans out. I think it's something that we should really be proud of ourselves when we accomplish things that we set our minds to. So then I just wanted to add a few long nails to my witch's hand. I myself love long nails, and I feel like this witch is super awesome. She, in my brain, is a bad bitch witch, and I love that she has these long stilettos on her hands. And then I added in these little details to look like they're little elements, little droppings of stuff that she's adding into her witch's brew. So I added a bunch of different dots all over the place to kind of give the effect of like sparkles with the sparkle gel over here, but I didn't end up liking how it looked. So it looked like it was starting to get a little too busy, so I removed it and kept it simple. Sometimes less is more. And then on the last two nails that I'm going to be working on over here, I kind of wanted it to be an extension of like the smoke and the potion rising off from the cauldron. So I'm going to be adding in smoke detailings, and I like having like the little bubbles over there that I did first. And this is where I realized why the smoke that I did on my cauldron didn't look as good. As I was going, I'm like, something about it was just looking wrong to me. And I realized at some point, I don't remember exactly when, but at some point I realized that I wasn't intertwining the different tendrils of smoke the way real smoke does. They swirl and twirl around each other, they overlap, they create these really beautiful twists and turns and curves, and I wasn't adding that to the nail set. So all of a sudden I realized like that's what was wrong with it. So I do go in, this is when I did it the first time. I kind of crossed it over and realized, oh, that's what my set was missing. So then after that I go back to the first nail that I did in this design, and then also back to the cauldron to add more tendrils of smoke that crossed and twirled and swirled around each other, and that just definitely brought the effect to life. So I was really confused when I was doing it and it wasn't looking right. I'm like, how can I be getting twirls of smoke wrong? It's just a couple of squiggles, but having it look a little bit more realistic actually really helped the design a lot. And then I went in over here and wasn't initially going to add purple to my cauldron, but because I added purple to the smoke and from the different potion-y bits that I had dripping from the witch's hand, I decided adding a little bit of purple to the cauldron would just, well, to the brew, to the potion brewing would just enhance the detail. So I kind of added a little bit to be a bit of a shadow and to just enhance it a little bit more. It's all about the details with a lot of these things. So next, I just once again wanted to add a bit more detailing to these designs. So I'm just adding these tiny little white stars on the nails over here, and it just kind of gives it a little bit more of like a twinkly magical effect. And I think it really just enhanced the look as well. So Oftentimes less is more, but sometimes adding the details as well really enhances and brings together the whole look. So it's all about balance, and a lot of it is of course subjective to what you like, and obviously art is subjective, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So it's really up to every individual to decide what's too much and what's just enough. But I felt that adding these little stars really added a twinkly and magical element to it. And I felt like this nail over here was just looking a little bit of an outcast. It didn't really feel fully immersed in the whole design, because the rest of the nails had a lot more color going on. So I felt like adding these little stars over here just brought it into the whole set and really made it feel included, as opposed to a little bit of an outlier that I felt it was looking, because it didn't have the bright colors that the other nails did. And then I went back in with the Home of Nail Art glow-in-the-dark top coat. I used this on a set a while ago that was also kind of witchy themed, I guess. It was like a spooky nighttime sky with little ghosts and a witch flying across the moon. And I thought it would be really fun to just add this to some of the Cauldron Brew sparkle effects. So I went in and added that a little bit here and there, just to add small detailing. I didn't want the whole nail to be glow in the dark, even though that probably would have been very cool. But because these are just a nail design and not something that I'm actually wearing on myself, it's just a design tip on nail tips, I didn't feel like it was necessary to do the whole design in top coat. But if I was doing like glow in the dark on myself or on a friend or on someone else, I might actually do the whole nail in glow in the dark, just because I feel like that would be a lot of fun. But I think there was also something really, really cool about, you'll see as soon as I get to like the final showing of the set together, to have just like the Cauldron Brew glow in the dark while everything else was like in shadow. I think that was pretty cool too. So let me know which you prefer. Would you have done the whole nail glow in the dark so that all of it was glow in the dark, or do you like the idea of just doing certain elements? So then over here onto this nail, I wanted to do the little parchment spellbook sheet in matte, but I wanted to do the rest of the set in shiny, especially because I did have some glitter going on, and especially with those with the nails that I had the Magpie Beauty gel on, that gel had glitter in the background, and I wanted that to be part of the set. I thought that it just added a lot of detailing. So I'm just going to do the background over here with the shiny top coat, but I wanted the parchment to remain matte, so it just gives that extra papery feel. Obviously you can do top coat in shiny if you want it as well. Again, totally personal preference. Just depends on the look that you're going for. And here is the final set together. I love how it came out. I think it's super fun. Here it is in glow in the dark. It was super, super cool. I really like it. This is it in natural lighting without any flash on, and then I turn the flash on so you can see it in different lights. So leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.